every episode with therefore you shouldn't highline, as if that's going to cover my legal ass. So far it's worked, knock on wood. But I'm 136 videos into just the channel, and today I'll hit 10,000 subscribers, which is a big number for YouTube. It's a big milestone in YouTube, and that's pretty special because the audience is really small. Actually, most of my audience doesn't highline, they just find it interesting what we do. So it's a neat way to make highlighting get recognized maybe more by the public, and when they see like that it's safe-ish, that they don't think we're trying to kill ourselves. So I see that as a benefit. I don't think having a ton of highliners in the world is a great idea. I mean, access becomes an issue or whatever, but I also think it's inevitable. So am I helping the problem? Probably not. However, let me start with my background. Hold on. I paint houses. I don't know how many people actually know that. YouTube does not pay anything. So I have a painting business. I have one full-time employee. I bought the business from my dad. I've been doing it since I was little. And so it's pretty easy for me now. And I work about 30 hours a week when I'm working. So I'm able to really live that slack life work balance, and I'm pretty happy about that because I find a lot of people usually have to make a choice, and I get to do both, which I'm really grateful for. I have found a plethora of laborers who don't want full-time jobs, and they're called slackliners. So as people come through the area, I am able to provide slack jobs for all the van lifers in California, and that's been a really nice thing because I can trust those people. They want to work hard for 2 weeks, and then I get my big projects done. I started in Yosemite in 2005 climbing, and I saw El Capitan and I wanted to climb it, so I learned climbing to big wall, and then I started big walling a year later. And I should make an episode or a whole channel about how not to big wall because I've done that really, really wrong. But I've done 17 big walls. That's my background. It shocked me when I found out highliners didn't start as climbers. I thought it was a prerequisite. And so people who didn't ever tie a BFK or a figure eight to a harness before, and they're like, oh, how do you tie a figure eight? And I was like, what do you mean? And it was just this. As the more I highline, the more I realized how little people knew in the next wave of people that were coming along. My first highline was in 2006, and it was horrible. My backup line was 3 meters to the left because I didn't know it went under your line. So, and then I knew like you'd stuff your webbing, right? Because that's what you did back then. So I, in the sand at Joshua Tree, used an oily stick because I realized you needed a stick, and I pushed the webbing through with oil first, then sand through this thing. So I felt like I was qualified to teach people how to do it wrong. So I climbed the Zodiac Clean is probably the biggest thing that I've done. We didn't use pitons. There's a bunch of inverted hooks at this moment. But after this big wall, I kind of just stopped. We had a scare on trying to climb the nose in a day, and then when we were rappelling, we realized Yosar did not always have our back. So I found highlighting to be way, way safer, even back then. So I kind of, half my gear wall that you see is rarely used. I do want to big wall a little bit more and try to incorporate that into highlining, but that is just a little bit behind the scenes. Since there was no certification, there was no way to qualify whether or not you know what you're talking about, I thought it'd be cute to stand in front of my wall, which I already had, and people think you know what you're talking about. It's pretty hilarious. So you fake it till you make it, and when I post stuff on Slack chat or whatever and people roast me for bad information, I joke that that is peer reviewed. So I end up learning just as much trying to share information that I've learned than it's gone both ways, right? I try teaching, but I also have learned a ton of stuff. So now it's funny. It's like people think the gear wall's, it's actually not a very big wall, it's a wide angle lens. We were rigging in Mexico and with Andy, and we rigged a line called Super Good Enough, and it became like this really awesome phrase. And I use it for work, in my life, in my relationships, and my rigging and everything, where you don't want to just do things good enough, because that's not great. And it's too hard to do things super good. If you're procrastinating perfectionist, you're never going to get anything done. My videos are horrible 3 years ago. They're kind of bad 2 years ago, and they're only slightly bad now. But I wasn't going to wait till I was good at videos to make videos. And so by doing, I became better at it. And my goal with the video side of things is to make one thing better in each batch of episodes. I film them in batches of 12 now. And that's what allows me to play and work and still put stuff out every Wednesday. No YouTuber films every week. It's not realistic. So I improved my audio, and my audio has been my focus the last few months, and then I'm trying to get better at making sure my camera's in focus, making sure my camera's stable, and by improving one little thing every batch of videos, they have become better over time. Same with rigging, same with climbing, same with painting, same with selling paint jobs. It's nice to do things as good as you can, but in a realistic time frame. Let's see here. These are a variety of videos I made. How not to rope jump is an interesting territory to get into. I was chastised quite harshly by a team in France for sharing how to rope jump. And they have a point. I believe that people have brought up the risks that by sharing certain information, it's a risk to people who try stupid things, right? But I think there's a real balance there, because I'm the kind of guy who's just going boom with information. I feel like I'm the Robin Hood of information. Whereas before, it felt like a very elitist thing, only the elite knew the newest and latest, right? It wasn't really publicly shared. And you have to be on the in-group to know how to do something back then. I feel like it's not like that today. But rope jumping is kind of like that, where it's like, there is an element of truth where we should learn in person. And I think by overwhelming people with 45 minutes of rope jump details, they actually learn that lobbing yourself off a cliff, there's a lot to it. Whereas I think rope jump videos that glamorize rope jumping with awesome music and slow motion things is actually more of a danger to not show people how much work goes into it, because people like me will try it with no information. So this jump, I spent a year asking everybody I knew, learning as much as I could, paying attention and helping with the rope swing at the fruit bowl, and realizing we don't know that much about rope jumps. And so that's why I'm always jumping with dynamometers now, setting the rings on the Eno split. I've done full-on brake tests in the park with vans, because I love vans and brake tests. And so before I put things out in the universe now, I make an effort to make sure they're tested. I don't just talk out of my ass anymore. I only intended to break a few items, so I thought this was a clever way. It was tinkering with AMCO, which I clearly love, and I have my SMC pulley set up. So I just created some 2-to-1s, put a dyno on a tree. This tree is healed for the most part, since I've gone back and checked it. It has seen quite a bit of force. And that dynamometer, before I learned how to catch things, because things go flying, including your brake test machine, this really heavy dyno has hit this poor tree several times. I have, every time I do a batch of brake tests, I've always put my Rock Exotica calibrated dynamometer in the system to make sure my other dynamometers are not too effed up. So, I made wood samples of this. I don't know if I have the wood version. I made a wood brake test machine. It broke like paracord until I could figure out how it was supposed to work. And then I have an aluminum welder, which is why everything I have is in aluminum, even though it does go through my mind, if I'm breaking really strong things, that this thing could go buckle on me. And it would be better. I thought this would be more of a mobile thing. So I wanted to disassemble, be able to disassemble it. This was going to go in my backyard. It accidentally fit in my garage. So I made it pretty, and now I can break stuff, I joke, in my socks. Every time after dinner, if people are around, we end up breaking stuff every time people come over and visit. That's the only way I can break thousands of brake tests over several years, which is my goal, if I just do a couple every day.
Is that top section aluminium?
Yeah, this is a 1/4-inch wall, square, rectangle tubing. Okay. And then I found out you can get curved edges instead of, what is this, architectural? This is...
And what forces do you go up to with that?
I built it to be 222 kilonewtons, or 50,000 pounds. Because my dynamometer that I bought on eBay was 50,000 pounds.
Okay.
But after I took things to like, because soft shackles will break, the 6 millimeters will break around 60, 70 kilonewtons, and I'm like, I don't need to go more than that. Like I was gonna break green span sets and get crazy and double wrap soft shackles, and I can, when I'm mostly done and kind of wanna retire from this, I'm gonna start breaking crazy things until the machine breaks. I'm just not gonna be in the garage when it happens. So it's funny to hear Walter saying he wasn't in the room when they did the wood. Because I'm like, my remote barely fits in the kitchen, like my hand has to sit on the outside and I'm pushing the button. So, but yeah, I have my iPad here and I'm able to record each thing. I was doing double entries. I learned to put a number in front of my samples because it was so hard to keep my stuff organized. But now with bolt busters that I'm doing, which I'll get to, I'm able to like do it a lot more efficient. I know hand pumping, I'm like, forget it. We've got 1,000 of these to do. Now I've got better hydraulic stuff. And, we've done over 600 brake tests to date, just on SlackSnap. It doesn't count the cutting high lines and breaking stuff in the part that are fully configured setups. As far as the sloppy science thing goes, that's where the super good enough thing comes in. When I feel like something's worth investigating and I get some weird numbers or something random happens, I'll go hard. We're planning on breaking 100 or 200 frost knots, just so we like know it almost doesn't matter, or like we'll find out line on the inside or outside or padded and not padded, how much of a difference that makes. Because I was getting very different results than the land cruising report that people treat as doctrine, because it's all we had. And we're finding out it doesn't matter. When we put the line on the outside instead of the inside, it gives a better bend radius. But that's something that, like a knot, it's so unpredictable, which is why we don't use it for standards or anything, and why we never put an NBS or an RBS based on knots, is because they're all over the place on the plot chart. Yeah. But when something keeps breaking so reliably, like soft shackles, I break a bunch, but like at some point people ask me questions like, that's not worth investigating. It costs so much time and money. I pretty much am burnt out from SlackSnap, but I've learned this really cool thing called delegating. And either if people stay at my house a while, they have to pay rent by breaking things, and or I pay them $20 an hour to break stuff. So it's been really, really helpful to have other Slackliners help get involved, which is how I'm able to do more and more stuff. This was super interesting. I got 30,000 views in a week, which is a lot for a niche thing, and I'm finding the climbing community, they gotta get used to my personality and my RBS and my little edginess, but I think people are really enjoying random brake tests, not just standardized brake tests in the climbing world. And so I think the audience is going to start to grow, and it's going to end up grabbing climbers and pulling them into highlining. I have found climbers in the bolting world, like you were saying, it's like they're not always sure about us putting in bolts, even though they have thousands on El Capitan. I put 3 on the roster and they freak out. So I think it'd be nice between the climbing community and Highline community can have some mutual respect, and I think this might be a way to accomplish that. Plasma versus Amsteel, that was a big into religion. And they get on a high horse on some things that either don't matter or they don't know what they're talking about, which is usually religious stuff, right? So it was a fun theme. And my goal, the reason I made it free, is because it's a lot easier to get a lot of people to help you if your book is free. And two, I want people to read it who would never even spend $1 on a book. And so I believe this will help sustainable bolting more than if I taught just a few people in person. And the whole New Testament, which is what my focus is on right now, because the Old Testament is what you basically have now, is how to bolt. The New Testament is how to rig all natural and how to remove bolts and really push not bolting. In my rope swing videos, I really promote people not rope jumping because all the stuff and the risk of hitting the cliff, and it's really embarrassing to die if nothing fails, right? If your rope's too long. So,
oh, sorry.
My Photoshop skills were getting a little bit better. It is interesting to watch how bolting has gone from not, thank you, has leaned more towards fluids for something that I believe the bolts should last longer than we do. Because if we're retro bolting every 10 or 20 years, our clips will look like Swiss cheese. So I am practicing removing glue and bolts so they feel more sustainable. But that's the biggest problem Yosemite has with them right now is like, yes, they're great. We recognize that they'll hold us now, even though we've never seen glue in our life. But what do we do in 50 years when they need to be replaced?
Ryan, how come you try to remove the glue rather than just patching it up?
You can remove them.
If you can remove it, it's better.
It leaves a big rusting hole sometimes though.
The goal would be to reuse the hole.
Oh, to reuse the hole.
Yeah, so basically I snap it off and drill through the thing, or to heat it up. How much heat does it take to weaken the epoxy? But that's why I think bolts, if we're going to put in glue and bolts, they need to be really good glue and bolts. Otherwise Yosemite, you can't use power tools. So a lot of my rigging, the soft shackle craze I'm on, is because our heights are horrific. The reason I focus on a lot of certain kinds of bolts is because I can't use power tools. And so a lot of things are filtered through my world. I try to make them broader because I realize there's a big world out there, right? But I also just know mostly my experience. Slack and Linux was our way of trying to get all the information that we found super useful on the internet, because I wasn't trying to recreate what's already in existence. I was just like, whatever's not there. That's why I've never really made a sit starting video. It's like, Selectivity had so many and other people had so many, I'm like, I don't need that. So we tried to put all of it on here. It's not as organized as, it's organized based on who did it, because we really wanted to promote who was doing it. But I found if you're trying to look for something specific, it's extremely hard to find on there. Not sure how to make this better. I still like having this as a resource. This was a 2-week joke that turned into 9 months of a social experiment. I was married to a procrastinating perfectionist. So she ended up doing really good with all of it. It was a super fascinating social experiment, especially somebody who came out of religion. Study one religion, it'll take you a lifetime. Study 2, it'll take you an hour. Creating one helps you understand religions really. It's really crazy how religions work when you build one. We didn't make a church, we made a religion. So it's super interesting to learn how that process works. Some people were mad for a variety of reasons. One of being which they were so mad that you can create a religion because religion comes from God. And I'm like, kinda. So it was just an eye-opener for a lot of people. I used to be Pentecostal, and people are like, oh, it goes back to the, when the apostles were doing miracles. I'm like, no, it was 1902 in LA. It's like now I'm sure psychedelics had something to do with it back then, but now I have leaned more from super Christian to pissed off atheist to the Diet Coke of atheism and leaning more towards the spiritual realm the more I trip. So, one good thing that I think came out of this was the Book of Slack, because if you can get past the first 15 pages of the Book of Slack, it has a really, really thorough history, probably the best history in one spot that I've ever found. And how do you say his name? Shimihai, or the guy who really investigated flow state. A lot of his research mixed in with all the other people who have researched flow state is that's actually a newish research realm. And highlining produces the most reliable, safest flow state that you can get from any other sport, I believe. So that's why so many people, when they try it for the first time, they're like, boom, I'm all in. And it becomes this really spiritual, emotional experience for so many highliners. I'm wondering if I should eliminate the first 15 pages of this book and just make it
The last 15 pages.
the last 15? Is it the last 15? I thought it was the first 15. I had all the Slack religious.
I haven't read, but
It's the Slack religious stuff in the beginning that we thought was hilarious. Another thing super interesting, our social experiment results were Europe's like, WTF. Americans are like, whatever. And South Americans are like, yes, and they start holding church. It was crazy how these now for the right reasons. And so we don't want to make it feel like marriage and divorce is such a terrible thing if you can be civil about it. So we're tinkering with that. This is my welder guide, and this is Bolt Busters being born, Slack Snap sister. And we are intending to break. This is just the machine that pulls them straight out and shear. And yes, we have a hydraulic cylinder to pull them in tension shear. And I overbuilt it so it looks dramatic because it's a lot more fun. The bolting Bible has a lot of jokes in it, mostly because there's such low-hanging fruit that you can't help but make some jokes. But it's also, if things aren't fun, clearly I believe this, if it's not fun, you're not going to, the vast majority of people are not going to learn it. So I always try to make an episode or a book or anything I do 50% entertaining and 50% educational. So this is going to be a dramatic version of Slack Snap, and our goal is to break 1,000 volts in every variation you can think of. We did create a hand pump system, which it's slow. I would probably build I'd get a better hand pump. This is not a straight line. Me trying to build these machines is just me wasting money left and right. I have so much hydraulic crap I'll never use now. But I didn't know anything about hydraulics, and now I do. So I do think it's worth the journey.
Can I just ask the scale of it? Is that the size of a bar stool? Or not quite?
It goes up to here.
It is sort of a bar
But
stool.
before the yellow thing.
Right.
Yeah, so it's
Massive.
that's the height of my head
Right.
about.
That's a big bolt tester.
Every component is about 15 kilograms or less, and all disassembles. So this is designed to fit into a big haul bag. So if I have enough stoked slackliners and we want to go somewhere to brake test an area that's like you can't get in with the car, we can do it manually and hike it in. However, I don't want to go to Yosemite and try what's the strength of Taft bolts before we replaced them. Because if they do this, I can't reuse the hole very well.
Yeah.
So Tap Point is the next area that does need to be rebolted, but I'm going to break all these bolts to find out the best. Because we're going to learn a lot. And yes, we do know a lot now than we did even 2 or 3 years ago. But I want them to be the best bolts possible, because all the lines don't only just go across the fissures, they go across the entire gorge now. So we want to be able to use high lines in multiple directions with glue ends. And I want to test the backward P concept before I put them in permanently in Yosemite. This is a 30 kilonewton hanger. The stainless steel wedge bolt, I was for sure thinking this is my patio, the equalization is a myth, holes that I used. And then I made my backyard super nice, I have a nice fence and a hot tub now, and I'm like, shit, now I got all these holes in my backyard. But I was like, you know what, it's worth risking breaking my concrete. I thought the concrete would break for sure. and it didn't. This snapped off at 42
Were
kilonewtons,
you pulling up?
straight up.
Oh.
We never found the nut.
Did you ask the Tesla about it?
Keep in mind, I have a patio cover. Where on earth did it go? So, unlike Slack Snap, I'm putting plexiglass around two sides of the bolt buster machine. So we can at least stand on one side, but I have the freedom to film it from the other side. So we are going to make learning about safety safer. This is my, oh, you can see the word Highline. Highline University International is my newest and latest project. My channel, if people are like, oh, just go down to Highline, and the new person goes there, it's 136 random videos, and then they'll get referred to the butt plug episode, and it's like, it's not helpful to people. If you're trying to learn stuff, or I get on this anal split kick, right? Because it's like solving a solution. I want to rig a 1 mile long Highline by myself in a day. I have these projects I'm trying to do, and I'm like, I have to have solutions. So when I see an anal split, I'm like, that'll help. Or I see certain extenders, that'll help. And then you can track what I'm trying to learn, and you can like figure out what my projects have been all these years. So, for new people, fresh off the boat, wanting to Highline with no experience whatsoever in climbing or whatever, I wanted a thing for them. Most of the rescues, I believe, at festivals are new people who don't know their head from their ass. And I feel like when you go to a climbing gym, a degree pre-installed, tape shut quick link that you're supposed, like, you can't remove this thing. You need to take an entire class before operating an auto-locking device to top rope. And if you don't know anything about highlining, you don't even know how to tie a figure eight, we'll do it for you. You'll enjoy an experience. And we did not at least have very many prerequisites before you go out and try it. When new people show up at Taft Point or whatever and they want to try highlining, I'm like, can you sit start? Like, that's not even that much prerequisite. But can you sit? Like, no, I tried slacklining before. I'm like, yeah, but can you scoot out and stand up? Because if you can't, no. Because I've had people try walking off the cliff, and I always caught back in the day. I never thought people would just arms down. I'm like, you are this far away from a cliff, and just realize like people don't intuitively always know safety.
Yeah.
So this is A to Z on how to learn certain things. The first course, I'm 71 videos done out of 100 for the first course, and they're 2 minutes long. And the first course is how to highline, or how to use a highline that's already rigged. There's a lot of stuff to know on how to operate it, how to slide across it, how to be safe near a cliff edge, how to tie in, things to look for, not understanding how things are rigged, things to check for. I want people to be radically self-reliant and not act like consumers. Is a highline padded? You don't need a H2 rigging level certificate of completion to know that a thing shouldn't be rubbing the cliff. So these are courses I will charge for. I have almost $5,000 into the H0 course in my website and everything. And I pay people $20 an hour to help me, I have people edit for me, I have people make quizzes for me. So through your Gmail, I give you links. The links go to a Google form, and there's like 7 different Google forms. A PDF guides you through the whole thing. It'll be like a 20-page written thing with basically everything in the videos in a PDF, so you can see it, you can read it, you can hear it, and then you have to do it. I believe you should learn this stuff in person. The problem is, every day somebody from a country I've never heard of messages me and says, I don't have a person near me. And so I'm trying to make solutions for people who are broke or alone. That's why I push the wood grip. Do I use my wood grip? No, it's really pretty on my wall. I clearly blow money on gear, but I want a solution for everybody in every country. And I think the split solves that if they can get simple sewn loops. But if we have Dura La Vida loops or balanced communities and we don't even need to tape them, sure. But I also had 50 pieces of webbing that I didn't want to add another $1,000 of expense to.
Yeah.
So I support and will promote the other systems once they're all more in place and we try them and see them at festivals. But the reason I do what I do is spend the sun without sunscreen hoping I don't get burned.
but I think to really that it can become a legal problem, it needs to be someone suing you from within the US. So it cannot be like an international lawsuit. That's like fairly unrealistic, I think. So it should
At least for the videos.
at least for the
My
videos.
question
Yeah.
was about the course.
At the course, yeah.
But
Same
the
there, it's online
liability-
video. So
The liability would be if I say, hang something, 2 meters up, hangs from it and try climbing a leash, and they get their leg slips and it goes up their ass and they get hurt, climbing a leash. And it's like, well, you told me to do it this way. And I
from
don't,
personal experience, I think it's really difficult to make you liable. Just imagine how much stuff is on YouTube. Have you heard of one single lawsuit because of something that is on
no,
YouTube?
that's why it's named the way it is and why I've never taken liability at this point. But if I'm going to have you under my name tell you how to do something, and maybe in person, because the idea is that we could upsell newbies to go with these teachers who live nearby, to go rig for a day for $250 or something and go do a whole in-person lesson. If I had enough teachers everywhere, then I'm really looking at like some level of liability. I don't know if I'm covered in Brazil. I just want to protect my assets.
That's something different.
But you're right.
With in-person things, that's something different. But I think just from videos, it's
So the question is, if I'm building 900 square feet of space nets, something I've tested and done my due diligence, and I'm working under Slackline US, and it's Slackline US owns the space nets. Dan and I talked a lot about this, and something breaks. And 4 of the 5 people are clipped in, but 1 rolls off the edge. I'm like, oh shit, I'm the space net guy. And like people last year, there's 8 people was the rule. We had 10 or 12 on there and somebody rope swinged on it. And I'm like, it's addition. This is simple addition. Every person's a kilonewton and every swing's 3 or 4. Stop. So I didn't get the parallel redundancy I was looking for. I was just like, yeah, it's strong, but Jesus. So I don't know what I'm liable for, and it's scaring me the bigger I get. It's like I feel like I have a target on my forehead if something goes wrong in this. If I do the soft shackle thing enough, I'm just promoting it enough. Now I'm not a gear company though. Right? If you're selling soft shackles, yeah. If I sold gear, I would totally sell quick links. But yeah, I try to be everybody's cheerleader for companies because I understand how hard it is to create gear. If I don't believe in a product, I just don't promote it. That's like the worst thing I'll do. And so, but I am creating buying guides for the school because people, my goal is to save them more than $99 having them buy the right gear once. Whatever the right gear for them is. We'll say the pros and cons of each one because it depends on what country you're in, what webbing you buy sometimes. It makes sense if you live in Canada to buy stuff from Slackline BC, but it doesn't make sense in Europe necessarily. So in that buying guide, I think it would be great if we did ISA certified gear companies only. Companies who are getting behind what you guys are doing. Otherwise, I'm trying to promote every place from Lithuania to random places that just have random gear. I don't want to keep up with it. If companies are making this much of an effort to make sure their gear is right, then I should only be promoting those companies. You said there's 15 of them? Potentially,
Yes.
that would get behind it?
yeah, right now, and probably more in the range of like 6 to 8 that will start with it. Certainly like 4 or 5 will start immediately, and
So I really value what the ISA does as a whole because this is not my personality to make things official and legal and certified gear and do the rigging certification. I have no desire to do it. I like the entertainment value of things and marketing, and so some things are edgy on purpose, right? It's not because I'm sloppy, it's because I want more people to see the information because I think the information will help them. So If I free solo, I wouldn't promote a free solo, right? Because I do understand now, I don't want copycats. I talked to Freedy and Andy about this. It's like, if I choose to do that in my life, that's my own personal stuff. It doesn't benefit anybody for me doing it. I have filmed a handful of free solos, or people talking about them, so people understand a lot of work goes into them, so they don't try it out of some adrenaline, testosterone-driven reason. So, but I do plan on doing a couple more edgy things. And it builds brand value, but it doesn't take away from my reason why I want to teach. I want to keep people safe at the end. And I don't try to promote anything that is what I believe unsafe, and I try to test everything I do before I promote it now. So I love having the soft shackle debate. I love having a test that shows something that I'm like, what did I miss? And then I go test it harder. Because if we're doing it on both sides of the pond, we're making sure that my stuff isn't too biased. I always think science is biased in one way or another, but I know my stuff is biased. People like that I don't have gear and like, I wanted to see gear reviews because you're not biased. I'm like, I'm super biased. I'm not biased to the first guy who gives me free gear. I'm just biased towards the stuff I like. So I try to promote safety, and not everything I do people agree with, but the heart is in the right place, if that counts for anything.